Second verse of the Tao Te Ching. Beauty and mercy are only recognized by people because they know the opposite, which is ugly and mean. If the people think they know goodness, then all they really know is what evil is like. Nothing and heaven share the same root. Difficulty and ease are a part of all work. The long and the short are in your hands. Above and below exist because they each do. What you want and what you say should be the same. Neither future nor past can exist alone. The sage has no attachment to anything, and he therefore does what is right without speaking by simply being in the Tao. Life, all life, began without words. Life is made, and no one owns it. The Tao is neither selfish nor proud. The Tao is generous and graceful in what it does, without ever claiming any merit. And the sage's greatness lies in taking no credit. Talk about a verse that's very anti-Western capitalist thought. I'll sort of start with a bunch of that stuff at the end and maybe then back up toward the beginning. So there's this idea, I think in the West, I know in the West, we've certainly come to think of karma as this sort of like cosmic judge, right? Like this was bad, this was evil, this was good, this was helpful. And for all the things that we do that are bad, then there's some punishment coming. And all the things that we do that are good, there's some benefit coming. It's not really what karma means and how it came to be that way. Like, karma is that saying. How that came to be, I'm not quite sure. But karma is just means deeds or doing. So in terms of freeing yourself of karma, one of the ways that is discussed to do that is to basically eschew um, the outcomes and the credit of the things that you do. So if you don't get tied to, nor expect, nor reap any benefit, good or bad, from the things that you do, this is a way to rid yourself of karma. And that to me is what a lot of the last part of this chapter or verse is talking about. Having no attachment to things, doing things without expecting credit, doing things just because you are simply in the Tao, right? You're just flowing with the way that things are. And that is all that you are doing. And so in that way, you don't really have anything to take credit for, because if you're just flowing and doing things naturally in a way that is happening from a macro universe perspective, then the action or the inaction is not really yours to begin with. And so there's nothing for you to take credit for. Backing up to the beginning, beauty and mercy are only recognized by people because they know the opposite, which is ugly and mean. So it's really interesting to think that we know things because we know what their counterpart is. Right? We know what the opposite is. We know that there is life because there is death. Or we know that there is death because there is life. And you can sort of think that one begets the other. And the reality is, it's not sort of life begetting death or death begetting life. It's that they are all arising mutually. These things are all coming into existence at the same time. And that is part of the mystery of the Tao, and is just a strong reality in the physical world and in the non-physical world. And so to think about things that you would perceive as bad or evil or mean that happen, The reality is those are just the other side of the same coin as the good things and the beautiful things and the joyous things that are happening. And so you can't have one without the other, and you can't know one without knowing the other. Speaking with someone experiencing blindness from birth who's always been in the dark, darkness means nothing to them. We have that concept in the sighted community because we know what light and vision are to us. And to us, when we close our eyes, then we're in the dark. We shut off, if we happen to be in some sort of completely pitch dark place, then we're in the dark. But to somebody who's never experienced vision or light, they have no concept of being in the dark because they don't have a concept of the opposite. And so this spreads throughout the Tao for sure. A lot of opposites pertaining to the same thing. But again, it's because something like life and death or light and darkness arise mutually. There isn't one and then the other. I think it might have been Zhuangzi who said this, but I could be wrong there. But there's a saying in the world of Taoist philosophy that spring does not become summer, and summer does not become fall, and fall does not become winter. There is spring, and then there is summer. There is summer, and then there is fall, and so on and so forth. So the idea that these things are arising mutually, but they are not a cause and effect of each other. They are not a flipping from one and then flowing into the other. It is not that. And similarly here, we can see that it's not that ugliness brings about beauty or love brings about hate. It's that these things arise and exist mutually, and they couldn't exist on their own. You couldn't have only love. It needs to arise mutually with its counterpart. Same thing with life and death. You could not have just life and no death. Or you could not have just death and no life. And so in that way, you can think that death begets life, just as much as life begets death. The last thing that I'll touch on here is nothing and heaven share the same root. Difficulty and ease are a part of all work. We spoke about the first verse and the importance of nothingness and thinking, how we actually think about nothingness, and that nothingness is not actually no thing. We think of space as being just nothing. I mean, open space. I don't mean like outer space. But open space is just being sort of nothing. But that's not really the case. Open space is tremendously important because you need open space in order to have filled space, right? So if you have no space, you have no room for anything to go anywhere. And so in order for there to come about to be anything, right? This goes back to the question of why is there something instead of nothing? Well, part of the reason that there is something instead of nothing is because there is space. And so the counterpart to form is space. Form needs somewhere to form. And it does that in space. And so in this way, nothing and heaven share the same root. Again, same root. Things are arising mutually together at the same time. It's not one cause and affecting the other.